So that's why some of these things are very valuable. Another reason that when you deconstruct buildings is very valuable, some of those materials today are more valuable than when they went in. There are lengths of wood which we just don't make anymore. Long, 24 feet bits of wood, etc. Maple, redwood and stuff. And people are getting this wood and they're making beautiful furniture out of it. And of course the value added on that is phenomenal. In the Bronx, incidentally, they're making beautiful furniture out of pallets. And they can't make it fast enough. So we must involve builders, architects in zero waste. There's nothing like deconstructing something to give you a good idea of how you should build it next time round. And there's nothing like taking these materials to the scrapyard or the reuse and repair center and knowing what's there so that when you're building a green building, you know where to get the supplies, the reusables, to build that. So there's a good relationship between the builders and Dan Knapp. Another thing about his operation which is exciting is that every day they send a truck to the transfer station. And they make sure that the transfer station has a flat floor that people tip onto the floor. They don't tip into a pit. And this means that you can have two people all day long when the stuff is poured out, scavenging that and pulling out reusable objects. And each day they fill a truck with these things which then go to the reuse center. So again, how you design some of these things up front can make a big difference. Now I've got a lot of these operations online, on video. You can access them from that website, American Health Studies. The first one that I made, I think was in 1999, where I interviewed nearly all the leading figures in zero waste in the United States and Canada. And that's called Zero Waste, Idealistic Dream or Realistic Goal. And it's 60 minutes long. And it also has quite a bit of footage from Urban Ore. And the other ones that we have, there are five other videos on this series. There's a series called On the Road to Zero Waste. And the first one was made in Nova Scotia, very exciting program, more about that later. The second one was made in Burlington, Vermont, which is a reuse and repair center which specializes in deconstruction and job training and poverty relief. The social services department in Burlington, Vermont gives coupons to people that have nothing. So they take these coupons to the reuse and they can get the basics, the basic furniture for their houses and so on. So it's good all round. And that one, so there's two different models. Dan Knapp's is for profit. Burlington, Vermont is non-profit. So you've got models of both kinds to look at there. So Nova Scotia 1, Burlington, Vermont 2, Canberra, Australia 3, and San Francisco 4. And there's another series which I started, and I only made one. But I really believe in this, and I hope that somebody else who has more time than I do now will do this. It's called Pieces of Zero. And the idea is that there are all kinds of exciting initiatives that are going on at the individual level, at the corporate level, at the community level, and most people don't know that this is happening. Today I was told by somebody at one of the meetings about something I'd never heard about. There's some ghastly plant that grows somewhere in Florida. It's like a gigantic invasive weed, and apparently she's been able to dig this huge plant up. And what's she do with it?
She makes styrofoam containers, but it's not styrofoam.
Yeah, but substitute for styrofoam containers out of this material. Well, how many people know that? But what we need that on videotape. We need it available on the internet. Otherwise, we're all trying to reinvent the wheel when it's already been invented. There's so many great examples. And in this business, a little creativity at the front end saves millions at the back end, really. It's creativity waiting to happen. All right. So what can you achieve with these first 5 steps? How realistic is this? How practical is this? Can we make it a real dent? Well, let's start with San Francisco. population 850,000, very little space. All the education has to take place in 3 languages, English, Spanish, and Chinese. This is not an easy place to tackle, but they were getting 50% diversion by 2000, which was the state law. This is what started things off in San Francisco. The state law says you've got to get 50% diversion by 2000. By diversion, we mean every combination of you could think of between reuse, recycling, composting, avoidance, waste avoidance, reduction, etc., to landfill. They got, and you can see how the figures have grown. Their goal for 2010 was 75%. They reached that goal, and now in 2011, last year, they reached 78%. So there's 78% diversion by 2011. And their goal for 2020 is 0 waste.
Is that by weight? How do they measure?
That's by weight. That's by weight. So when people tell you this is pie in the sky, it's not. This is actually happening, and they're pretty determined to get very close to this. Now, back in 1985, when I first got involved with this, they wanted to build 35 incinerators in California. They only got 3. Now, one of the proposals was for San Francisco and that area. Now, if they built that mass burn incinerator in those days, they would be getting 75% reduction. Because for every 4 tons of trash that you burn, you get 1 ton of ash. So here they are, getting 3% more without the huge costs and the huge problems of incineration. 78%. Okay, how things change. Do you remember, in 1985, I remember very distinctly, because it shook me up a bit, I had the solid waste director of our county telling me, Paul, if you talk about more than 15% recycling, you'll lose all your credibility. Incredible. That's how things have changed. If you build an incinerator today, you're assuming there are going to be no changes over the next 25 years, which is preposterous when you look back and see the changes that have taken place over the last 25 years. In Italy, we have over 200 communities getting over 70% diversion. Some very quickly. Towns in Lazio province got up to 60% diversion in 1 year. These are towns of 3,000, 4,000, 6,000. We had a town in northern Italy, Novara, near Turin, a population of 100,000, 70% in 18 months. We have Salerno, near Naples in the south, population 145,000, 72% in 1 year. Amazing. In Belgium, the Flemish part of Belgium, Flemish-speaking part of Belgium, Flanders, 6 million people getting 75% diversion. The other 25% is burnt, which is unfortunate. I think if they knew today that they could get 75% without incineration, they would not have built those costly machines. They're doing everything I think I've ever asked for, and more. Very creative. They even give people chickens. Chickens. Yeah, chickens for their backyards, so the chickens will eat up the scraps that are not composted or whatever. Yes. And I love it. I love those chickens. I love the idea of somebody getting a chicken in a high-rise building, what they do with that. They make lovely birds. Okay, so so far we've talked about composting the organics. You're doing it. We're talking about materials recovery. You don't have one of those. You could have one of those if you put the money there instead of incineration. But you are doing the recycling. This, I think, is waiting to happen in Whitehorse. But even so, you're going to get stuff left over. And the rest of my talk is what you do with the stuff that's left over, the residual fraction. And obviously, we have to minimize that fraction.